1 minute. All right, 45 seconds. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Buckner?
Here.
Reverend Campbell?
Here.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Mr. Shanks?
Here.
Mr. Vogler?
Here.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
Please stand for the invocation led by Dr. Gary Miller and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're always talking about how policemen go out and put their life on the line for the city. So I've written a prayer tonight in honor of our policemen and our police chief. So I'd like to read that to you as we pray. Let us pray. A policeman's prayer. As I start my long shift in this never-ending night, I pray for peace and calm that no one will fight. Give me strength and courage and wisdom. I must be fair to all, be equal and just. I will protect my city through the long and perilous night, and when all else fails, I may be forced to fight. Then if I must sacrifice and give up my life, I only ask, dear Lord, that you protect my loved ones, my husband, my wife. I trust in you, God, to shelter and feed them if I must leave them alone, if this is my last shift and I'm not coming home. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Communications from visitors. Citizens who desire to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Citizens who desire to speak on agenda items will be heard when the agenda item is considered. Anyone wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Hearing or seeing none, we will move on with the agenda items. First item is minutes of the January 2nd meeting. What's your pleasure, Councilman Buckner?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the council meeting held on January 2nd, 2018.
Second, Councilman Whittle. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Whittle?
Aye.
Consideration of approval to amend Chapter 41 entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, specifically Article 10 entitled Signs. I open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this item at the public hearing? Please come forward. Hearing none, close the public hearing. Councilman, what is your pleasure? Vice Mayor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 41 entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986 as amended. More specifically, Article 10 entitled Signs, Section N entitled Permanent Signs in the CB-C Central Business Commercial District, and Section 0 entitled Permitted Signs in the TW-C Tobacco Warehouse Commercial District to address the number and size of signs permitted per building.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Vogler. Discussion on the motion. Councilman Shanks.
Yes, sir. I just have one question for the staff, if I may.
Mr. Gidley, come forward, please.
Good afternoon, good evening. You're just changing one sentence in the code, is that right?
We're matching two districts, which required more than one sentence in the code, but it's because that's why you see all
The
the
same
strike-through.
change in each
Correct.
section? Okay.
Yeah.
So it used to be wall signs were permitted for each wall of a building facing the public street.
One sign
One
per
sign
wall.
per
Correct.
building.
Correct.
Now you're saying one sign per establishment.
Correct.
Okay, and then it says on the premises based on the allowable square footage. Does the allowable square footage apply to each sign or the cumulative square footage? In other words, are you increasing the square footage as well?
We are, in the central business district, yes, we are increasing the square footage. In tobacco warehouse, no. We're bringing two districts into compliance with each other because we feel they're very similar. The central business district had a limit on one sign and the square footage was less. We're now matching that with the tobacco warehouse district.
Okay, so, but all signs, regardless of who puts them up, are subject to these new regulations or the current ones?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Can you give me an example
Of why we're changing it, or?
of that too?
The reason this came about, the gentleman who has what's now the First Citizens, I believe it was the Nations Bank building, where First Citizens Bank is, that being central business district was actually only allowed one wall sign facing Main Street, which First Citizens had locked out the square footage. Well, there's additional floors, the second and third floor. Basically, those tenants couldn't advertise. Where if you were in the tobacco warehouse district, you had that option. So we felt that the two districts are similar enough now that they're all part of the river district per se, but we should have matching signage and also allow for additional tenants on the upper floors as we're having buildings develop out, have the ability to place signage. The way we felt was most equitable was to just go on a square footage basis of the building. You have the square footage, basically double it. If the building's tall, we give additional square footage for the added height of the building. And then it's up to the owner basically to break the signage up, 3, 4, whatever number of signs they have based on what that total square footage would be. It takes it out of our hands and kind of gives it to the owners of the building to make that decision.
Councilman Shanks.
But the gross square footage allowed for the building will increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does increase slightly.
And the setbacks were 5 feet off of the right of way?
Correct.
There ain't even much room there.
Most of the buildings downtown are built up to the right-of-way, so we're not anticipating we're going to have ground signs. If you think of that building is set back, so there would be a spot available. There are a few buildings that this could apply to. In general, this is a wall signage change, but because we were going through the whole thing, we thought we'd tweak some stuff while we had it.
Councilman Vogler.
So the bottom line is this is going to make it easier for business owners in the district to have signage on their buildings.
It'll make it easier for business owners to have signage. It'll make it easier for, as we develop the second and third floor, some of these larger buildings, the upper floor tenants to have. It will also allow for some additional signage that's not available right now. It'll match the central and tobacco warehouse district. So if you were in the central business district, you were in effect punished for being in that location. You were allowed less signage than someone in tobacco warehouse. We're now trying to level the playing field between everybody in the river district.
Sounds like a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Councilman Whittle.
So if I got a second floor spot, will it go on the second floor and out? Or
You can.
how do you split it up?
That's up to the owner to decide on how they split that up. We just tell you have X number of square feet to work with. It's up to the owner to say, well, tenant A gets X, and tenant B gets Y, and tenant C gets whatever. We just tell them this is the number that you've got, and let the owner figure it out. We didn't feel that it was our place to say, all right, the first floor gets this, the second floor gets that, the third floor gets that, because it's their building. We just give you a total so that everybody's playing with the same deck, kind of.
Okay, so if the 5-foot setback.
That's for the ground sign. If they had a ground sign.
Fine. Then if it's on the building, there's
Well,
not.
so the building there, the setback doesn't count because the buildings are built right up to, most of them are built
Okay,
up
right,
to the line.
Okay.
It's only if they do a pylon-mounted sign, and we have very few pylon-mounted signs in the River District or Tobacco Warehouse.
Councilman Shanks.
There's a case in the recent past that I'm thinking of where a business had owned almost a block or half a block, had three buildings, 3 road frontages, how would that impact in a business in the downtown central business district with those type of circumstances?
It would
The
probably
freestanding signs part of the provision.
the freestanding portion, if they had the ability, if they were set back from the street,
Yes, they would be set back.
okay, they could have a freestanding, and they could have had a freestanding before. The 5-foot setback would come into play just to have it pull back off of the sidewalk and elevate. For the wall signage, they would get more wall signage than what they had, especially if it was in the central business district portion of it. They would get, again, the ability to have additional wall signage and more wall signage than what they had previously.
But I'm speaking in this case of just freestanding.
The freestanding, it really shouldn't change that much. They'd have that 5-foot setback. They'd be allowed, I'm sorry, like I said, this was mostly a wall signage change. Depending on how much square footage in the building,
Well,
32
page
square
4
feet.
Page 4 of our report has a whole bunch of new language underlined, which I assume that's what you're meaning.
Correct. You'll have it on page 4, and then further on,
I'm
depending
sorry,
on...
13 of 41 is the agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at the ordinance. I was looking at page 4 of that.
The reason why I ask is it would seem if there's any discussion to be had on that, we should include it here because, well, I'll get with you later.
Okay. We've had, I was going to say, I've had that building, the possibility of 1 or 2 further down Main Street.
It's another bank building that was cut back. They own half a block and several buildings and 3 road frontages. We'll get together. It just didn't seem right to me when they got turned down.
Okay. Yeah, I can talk to you later about that when I'm unaware of that situation at the moment.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I got just one more. So you got one that's on the block, and it's got the whole block has got a 5-foot setback on it. It's going to be on the building. How far do they encroach into the right of way?
On the building, if the building is built to the right of way, we allow out a projection. I want to say 24 inches off the face of the building itself. Mee's Burgers just put up a new sign that extends out. The Brick, Delano's Pizza, we've got quite a few of them now have developed projecting signs. And I think it is 24 inches off the top of my head, and I'm sorry. Most of these we're looking at flat wall signs and the increase in those. Again, our own voter registration office basically couldn't advertise that we'd move the voter registration office in there because of the way that the sign restrictions were. So this allows for additional signs to take care of things like that.
Okay.
Any others? Motion was made, properly seconded. Call the roll, please.
Reverend Campbell. Aye. Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
B, consideration of authorizing submission of the listed street to the Virginia Department of Transportation. What is your pleasure, Councilman Vogler?
Yes, Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution authorizing and approving a request by the City of Danville to the Virginia Department of Transportation that certain streets be added to the Danville Highway Maintenance System.
Seconded by Councilman Campbell. Any discussion? Councilman Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Comment, then 2 questions. I see where Danville is getting, Mr. Manager, $14,000 to assist with this project.
I believe that's the additional amount of maintenance funds we would get annually if this was added to our street system.
Will the state also pay for future repair?
No, they expect us to make those repairs. They'll expect us to make the repairs because it'll be part of our street system, I believe.
So the 14,000 is one time?
I think that's an annual reimbursement, and I'm getting a nod. So yes, it's an annual amount that we will receive in addition to all the other funds we get to help maintain the streets in the city.
To help maintain this one or city overall?
It's for all. We get to choose which ones we want to maintain based on the need.
Okay, so is there a maximum in terms of how many requests we can make to the state for road expansion, widening? Because this is a real big improvement over there on 58, huge improvement.
I think there's probably, as far as, I might ask our Brian Donovan, our city engineer, to come up and help me with that question, because I could probably muddle through, but I think he'd do a better job.
is there a limit to what the state will pay for future expansion?
Well, that particular project was a revenue sharing project, so the city paid half and VDOT paid half. As much money as we want to put up to $5 million, well, up to a $5 million project, I believe they would match it, or at least they would entertain the application to match it.
Okay, so VDOT has a budget whereby it can allocate certain money, certain funds.
Correct.
But if many jurisdictions around the state make requests and they need more money, then we have to wait until they get more money. Is that correct?
Well, it's a competitive, so you know the application process is an open process all across the state. There's only so much money allocated to the program, this program in particular, revenue sharing. And so they rate the projects and they fund as many of the projects as they can, but they usually can't fund all of them. We've been fortunate enough that we usually get some type of funding, sometimes not always full funding, but some amount on the project.
It's a huge improvement, and Mr. Manager, I want to commend the staff on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I agree.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Item C, consideration of amending fiscal year 2018 budget appropriation ordinance for a grant from the Danville Regional Foundation in the amount of $25,000 for a See the Possible grant. What is your pleasure, Councilman Campbell?
Mayor, I move for adopting ordinance amending the fiscal year 2018 budget appropriation ordinance to include a grant from the Danville Regional Foundation in the amount of $25,000 to cover the travel expenses for 12 city staff and city council members to visit 2 riverfront parks to see the possibility. First reading.
Is there a second? Vice Mayor Jones. First reading. Any discussion? Do we have discussion on first reading? First reading. Item D. Consideration of amending the fiscal year 2018 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for the proceeds of general obligation bonds. What is your pleasure? Councilman Buckner.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2018 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for the proceeds from the sale of the general obligation bonds of fiscal year 2018 and appropriating the same.
Is there a second?
First reading, sir.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Campbell. That is for first reading. Clark, is there discussion? We don't have discussion on first reading.
You can have
You
it.
can have it?
Yes,
Any
sir.
discussion on the first reading? Hearing none. We'll go to communication. Before we start communication, I meant to do it so earlier and I forgot to recognize the students from Tunstall High School. Please stand and we welcome you. I'm glad that you are witnessing the government at work. And if any of you are 18, you've got till March the 6th to get your petitions. Yeah. Communication, city manager.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
How's Earl doing?
He's doing well.
Good.
From what I understand, he should be
Yeah.
back at it.
That's our deputy city manager.
Yes.
City attorney.
I will be the first, I'm sure many, to congratulate and welcome Chief Booth to as our new police chief.
City clerk.
Nothing, sir.
Call roll, please.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Just want to say to our new police chief, welcome aboard. To our fire department, they received from the Insurance Services Office top rating. Right now they're Class 2, and they received a Class 1 rating. And those of you who listen very carefully, we have a very wise councilman in Councilman Shanks on our Utilities Commission. The Utilities Commission meeting is to be February 26, 2018 at 4 p.m. But I'm sure Councilman Shanks will advise you got any questions or anything that he can help you with. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but he knows a lot about utilities.
He said thank you.
But the meeting. The meeting is February 26th, and it's here in the chamber. We understand there's a petition and all kinds of things, but he's very wise in it, so if you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us. Again, that's February 26th, the Utilities Commission meeting at 4 p.m. here in Chambers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Miller?
I'm not going to throw Councilman Shanks under the bus, so we'll go on. I want to congratulate our new police chief. First impressions are any indication of what we've got. We've gotten a good one. So, and I've talked to several police officers, and they are very impressed with him thus far. Alexis Earhart is here. She's at Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be hard to forget Lori Moran, but I think Alexis will just come and just make a legend of her own. So we're glad to have you. Utilities are on everybody's forefront, but good news is I was out at the solar array complex in Kentucky today, and yesterday Councilman Vogler and Shanks were also out there. It's pretty impressive. This is a project of 3 large solar array. It's a whole field as far as you can see. No cost to Danville Utilities. The company has supplied the panels. They bought the land. We just have to buy their power, which is low-cost power. 3 arrays, 2 megawatts each, power 600 or more homes. It's very low-cost energy. We have this transmission charge, which is everybody's bugaboo. The transmission to get the power from the Ohio River to here. Each middleman, they jack up the price, the transmission charge, get added in. Our transmission charge involves coming out of the array, going across the street to our substation at Kentucky. There is no transmission charge. So these will be low rates. Plus we received renewable energy credits. We get those. $15 a credit, 14,000 credits a year. We get to sell to businesses, industries who need to, everybody has their carbon imprint, and to defray some of that, they have to buy these energy credits. So we'll be glad to sell it to them at $15 a share, and we got that for free. So, and the other spinoff is it's right beside Dan River School, and the students will be able to go and study solar array panels and learn a lot. So it gets them into solar energy and renewable energy. So it's just a great project. We need more of these. And again, congratulations to the new chief. Thank you.
Mr. Saunders?
Thank you. I, too, like to welcome the new police chief to Danville. Dr. Miller just said, if first impression means anything, we got a great person, which I'm sure we do. We knew that from the very beginning. Also, I hope our former chief is enjoying his retirement, the good life, that is. So I welcome him, and again, I thank all the men and women who will be in that department working with our new chief. Congratulations to our fire department on getting that new rating. That should help everybody, hopefully, on their homeowners insurance with regards to your premium with that kind of a fire safety rating. And I know Dr. Miller just did, but Alexis, could you just stand, please? Alexis Earhart, congratulations on being the new president of the Chamber of Commerce for Danville, Pennsylvania County. We know you will do well, and you spoke very well at the 7:30 a.m. meeting this morning. Good job, good job. Also, I'd like to welcome the Thompson students as well. Glad you're here. And the mayor told you if you're going to run for something, you need to get your petitions out. Hopefully one day you will. With regard to the solar panels, I see them all the time on my way to church. I pass by them every single time, and they are beautiful. And what a cost saving that we hope to have. And I like to close by saying, Mr. Mayor, congratulations on your new grandson. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Shanks?
I too want to welcome the chief and look forward to for city council and city staff and chief and the department, everyone in public safety working together to help Danville become a nicer place to live. Although I love living here as it is now, I'm sure there's plenty that we can improve, and I look forward to the chief being part of that. The Danville Utility Commission meets the last Monday or the fourth Monday of each month, and those meetings are broadcast on city TV, and I would encourage folks to tune in to that meeting to learn a little bit more about what Danville Utilities, and in particular what Danville Power and Light is doing to try to mitigate the rate and the congestion charges, the rates, the transmission charges that we have become accustomed to in the last few years. Without taking up too much time, I'd just like to say that I think it was 2012 or 13 when we had our first experience in congestion charges, and they were tremendous, as were the ones we just experienced in January. This is a new animal on the block that no one could foresee coming. The polar vortex basically hit such a large segment of the United States between here and Chicago that there was the threat of even having to have rolling blackouts because of the energy demand that was being put on the grid. As a remedy to those concerns about rolling blackouts or brownouts, there were several instruments or groups put together that are in charge of making sure the grid is capable of transferring power from one region to another. And then, of course, within the region, there's another, like for instance, Appalachian is who we pay our transmission charges. And I don't mean to, I see a person a lot more capable of referring this matter to the public, and Jason Gray, head of Danville Public Utilities. But I just wanted to point out that these are things that we're battling now that weren't on the horizon in 2008, although we did know coal was on the way out at that particular time. Some of these other things that we've had to deal with cost-wise, including us trying to diversify out of coal into other power plants in the Ohio, run-of-the-river power plants in the Ohio Valley. So there are a whole lot of things that have occurred that have driven the cost of electricity up, and what makes it so bad today is the fact that we experienced tremendously cold weather for a long period of time in January. I compared my January bill to my February bill, which was my highest bill last year, and it's substantially higher, but the average temperature per day for the month, and you can get all this information off of your utility bill on the Danville portal, was 25 degrees. The average temperature in January of this year was 25 degrees colder than February last year, which was our worst billing period. And I know that doesn't make it any easier to deal with it, because I've seen, between my house and my office, I've seen the utility bill go over $1,000 combined, and the office had never been hardly anything. And what happened is my office, and I'm sorry for dragging this on, but my office is on a heat pump. And when the heat pump can't keep up, it goes over to electric resistant heat. And my thermostat was set at 60 at night at the office, but it was running the emergency heat, and I didn't think to lower the thermostat. So in essence, we have been dealt a terrible utility bill, and I know everybody's hurting, but there are a whole lot of things that make this a complicated issue, and I would encourage you to speak with people at Danville Utilities, or speak with people on the Utility Commission, or speak with heating and cooling experts, and try to understand a little bit about what's going on. In the meantime, I can assure you, just like this solar plant, which wasn't even on the drawing board 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I can assure you that Danville Utilities is doing everything in its power to find sources of power generation that will be less costly and will, in the end, put Danville's rates right in line with others. In the meantime, Danville Utilities has a rebate program, and by golly, while you've got the enthusiasm of the bill that stands in front of you, there's a rebate program for insulation, for upgrading heating and ventilation systems, for all types of power conservation measures. And finally, the last thing I'd like to add is we have on a work session later, I'm not sure if it's the next one or the following, but actually I think it's this evening, there is a a possibility or probability that connections to Danville's gas transmission line will be cheaper for the homeowner to switch over from electric to gas heat or gas stoves or gas hot water heaters. And the city is probably, the Utility Commission has recommended and City Council will probably approve this policy that will make it connections up to 300 feet off of the public right-of-way. So houses that are off the street a good ways can connect as long as they hook up to one major gas utility or gas stove or like water heater, something like that. So anyway, that's coming. Take advantage, if nothing else, take one positive out of this terrible heating bill, and let's all try to figure out a way to make our homes more efficient and cheaper to heat and cool. Thank you, and I'm sorry for taking so long.
Mr. Vogler?
Yeah, I first want to just take a minute and say it's great to see Brother Pete Harrison here tonight. For those who don't know him, I suggest, first of all, you get to know him. But among many things, he is the owner of Bro Pete's, which is a wonderful local business here in Danville that is located on Westover Drive. That the food is out of this world. I mean, the fried chicken I'm a big fan of, and I think that's no secret to anybody that knows me. Sorry, Doc. But I mean, anything on the menu is great. But good to have you here tonight, and I'd encourage folks to go support a great local business here in our community. You'll see me there, and my mom and friends, and it's just a fantastic place. So good to have you here tonight. Also want to officially welcome Chief Booth on board this week. As all the things that everybody else has already said, I agree with, and I truly believe he is the right man at the right place at the right time. And I look forward to working with him and supporting him in any way I can to help him do what he needs to do. And I think he's going to do great things in our city, so I'm excited about that. I just want to take a couple minutes because other council members have already done a good job explaining a lot of the different moving pieces with the utility situation, but I know that all of us on council have received a number of phone calls and emails and texts and messages and all these things. And, I think I'm being conservative here when I think I've had at least 100 just in the last week or so for various ways of communicating. And so I did just want to take a couple minutes to say a few things because I want people to know that we do care about what's going on. And it's a real issue for a lot of people in our community. And it's something that we certainly need to be aware of. And as some of the technical side of it has been discussed already tonight, but the reality is regardless for what the reasons are, the bottom line is we got people in our community paying $400, $500, $600, $700 a month for utility bills. And that's less money they have to go out and eat, go out and shop. That has a negative impact on our community. And so it is a real issue that we need to do everything we can to try and to solve. And a lot of it, and Fred and Dr. Miller and others have talked about, the various reasons for this. Some of it is, purchase agreements that were done many, many years ago that, a decade or more that unfortunately have just turned out not to be good investments that we're now having to deal with. But the reality is that it's impacting a lot of people. And so it's real. We hear about it all the time. And it's something that we need to be very aware of because people consider a lot of things when they're looking to move to a community or where they want to reside. And utility costs are one of them. Maybe in years prior that wasn't necessarily a prominent factor in where they want to live. But when your utility bill is more than your mortgage or more than your car payment, you better believe that that's going to be a factor in where they want to reside. And so, we hear the feedback coming in. Believe me, the bill, and I think Fred just said too, it was the highest one he's had. It's the highest one I've ever had, this most recent one. Of course, we had cold weather, we had all these things, but again, the bottom line is it's a lot of money coming out of people's pockets. We've got some changes that are happening, as was mentioned. Dr. Miller was there today. Councilman Shanks and I were there yesterday. The solar farm, I think, is going to be great. The more energy we can get produced on our side of the grid, the better off we're going to be. That is fantastic. But we're going to need more than that. That alone is not going to get us back to where we need to be. So I think it goes without saying we need to explore all options to deliver quality utility services to our customers at an affordable price. I hope we will continue through the Utility Commission, council, everybody involved to search every avenue possible to make that happen. Because owning a utility company as a municipality can be a great thing for your community. But if we're not careful, if we don't take steps to become more competitive, we could have a utility company that doesn't have any customers left. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Whittle?
Thank you. Of course, my power bill tripled too, but I'm going to show up at the next meeting and see how it runs. Get my questions answered. We do welcome the new chief, and I did get to experience his staff over the weekend and our fire department on the apartment below mine, and they did a great job of getting in there and taking care of business, and they're just really professional crew that we have, and I want to thank everybody that was participating in that. Thank you.
Mr. Buckner?
Yeah, April 2015, there was an article released on a study that was done on the city of Danville as to whether we should sell Danville Utilities. At that time, we were told that it was probably a bad idea to sell the utilities department. I personally, along with 7,000 other people that signed a petition on change.org this week, would like to see that revisited. If we could just go back and review that study again, maybe at the utility meeting or something. There again, Fred, I applaud you and the Utility Commission for all that you do, and everything that you've shared with us tonight is very helpful and insightful. Just to remind everybody, if you didn't get it, their next meeting is February the 26th at 4 p.m. and it will be televised. It will be on River City TV, and you're more than welcome to come up here if you're available too. I'm sure they'd love to answer all the questions that you have, and could probably answer them a whole lot better than the rest of us can. We've been getting several phone calls all week, and Councilman Vogler said he had 100. I bet I've had 300. My name was on the petition. So folks reached out to me. I'm not really sure how it got on there, but it was on there. I'd like to give a congrats to the men and women of the Danville Fire Department on your rating. We're very proud of the work that you guys do for us day in and day out. I'd also like to just make a suggestion. If we could we look into maybe recording and airing the IDA meetings to better improve our transparency throughout the community? I think we get a lot of questions and a lot of concern, and people don't fully understand what the IDA does. And I think if we were able to air them and record them and play them back throughout the week, I think that would help folks understand a bit more of what they do. Also, love to welcome Chief Booth. I had the opportunity to spend a few minutes with him this morning, and I think we have a gem there, guys. Congrats to the men and women of the police department. You have an outstanding gentleman to work for. Ken, thank you for your hard work and locating them and finding them and bringing them here. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Reverend Campbell?
Yes, very briefly, I think everyone has already stated. I just dittoed some comments that have been stated. We'd like to welcome the new chief. We're looking forward to working with him. He has high marks, and I think he will be very effective in our community. This morning we had a breakfast at the Chamber of Commerce. Alexis made an excellent presentation. We're looking forward to working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we all miss Laurel. I don't think we could have chosen anyone better to move forward, and we just want to salute you today. Yes, we all have gotten many calls. I haven't gotten 100 or 300, but I've got some calls, about the situation utilities. And we do understand that we had some extremely cold weather. I'm glad to see the interest and trying to get more information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Well, I too would like to welcome Chief Booth to Danville and to the Police Department, and I look forward to working with him through the city manager, of course. And I think what a great time for a new chief, just as the budget season hits. So he'll learn the ropes quickly, financially anyway. I do want to mention that I have a new grandson. His name happens to be Bo Franklin Epcar. He was born January the 13th. He weighed 8 pounds and 13 ounces and 21 inches long. So I'm going to be going to Brooklyn much more frequently than I have been. Welcome to the Tunstall students. Appreciate your coming. You're welcome anytime. And I hope that you learned something from this relatively short meeting. And that's all. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.